Hi, everybody. Welcome back to That's Debatable. Today, we're throwing it all the way back to another server story. And this certain story caused such a big debate in my comment section that I figured it'd only be right to bring it to the podcast because the podcast called That's Debatable. So let's debate. So, for a lot of people watching, and if you've been an avid watcher of me, you probably have seen my most viral video, which is my server story of a time that a guy didn't tip me. And this certain story, I'm not going to waste too much time telling it because it's a very short, it's not even that short of a story, but um, the biggest story that came out of it was how angry people got when I said that you should always tip your servers, which I didn't think was going to be that big of a discourse, but apparently it is. So I'm just going to get into the actual story and then I'm going to talk about how violent my comment section got after this. So basically, this is when I was serving at a pretty good restaurant, and I never like to say the name of it because I feel like a lot of people will know what it is, and I don't want them to get mad at me. But more than anything, I never really, depending on where you serve, you kind of expect a certain type of clientele. And in this clientele, it was a lot of businessmen and their families. Like, think about this restaurant as if it was like the TGI Fridays of the upper echelons of the world. So it's not like extreme fine dining, but it was a lot of wealthy people would come to this restaurant. So I never really had an issue with not getting tipped out. Like, for example, when I worked at Olive Garden, that was absolute mayhem. You pretty much expected people not to tip you because, I mean, it's cheap food. So you can expect the clientele that's going to go there. Ooh, does that sound shady? Is that shady? Is that shade or is that just the truth? Okay, I was going to say, little disclaimer, that's not meant to be shade, but I mean, if you work at a restaurant that offers never-ending pasta, I was going to say pizza, never-ending pasta, you're going to expect a lot of teenagers, a lot of teenagers. Oh my God, so many teenagers, or people that don't typically ever go out to eat, so they don't know how kind of the system of it works, I guess. But I wasn't really expecting much out of Olive Garden. In this certain restaurant, I never really had an issue with people not tipping, except for this one time. And this one time I decided to tell the story because of how outlandish and crazy the situation went down. So basically, I was serving this couple, and I think that they were on a date. Maybe it was their first date. I'm not too sure. But they were getting to know each other, whatever. And the whole time as I'm serving, I can just hear their conversations. And it's not because I'm intentionally trying to hear their conversations. I just want everybody to understand, if you're at a restaurant, your server hears everything. Absolutely everything. And it's not because we're trying to be nosy or we're trying to fill in on a cheese mail of what's happening in your life. It's just because in this restaurant, you have to do rounds around your table. So I'm constantly just circulating my section. So I hear conversations. And one time, this is completely off topic, but one time I heard a couple get divorced at this restaurant. And I was like, ooh, 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 full blown, I'm filing a divorce against you. And again, I wasn't planning on hearing it, but they also knew that I heard, and she kind of was just like, what do you think about this? And I was like, ooh, this has nothing to do with me, but live your life and get your alimony, I guess, girl. But this guy just kept gassing himself up. I guess he kept being I make so much money, I could take care of you, don't ever worry about anything, if you are gonna be my girl, my girl's gonna get taken care of, you never have to work a day in your life, if you're gonna be with me, I'm gonna pay for this meal, I'm gonna pay for your shoes, I'm gonna pay for your hair, I'm gonna pay for your nails, I'm gonna pay for everything, I'm gonna be the papi shampoo that you never thought you could ever get. And obviously you could see this girl's eyes light up. And I'm like, me too. My eyes kind of lit up too, because I was like, oh my God, okay, fierce. And he's ordering everything off the menu. He's trying so hard to impress this girl. And I'm getting excited because I'm like, well, if you're going to be papi shampoo to her, that means I'm going to get a little bit of the papi shampoo effect. I'm going to get something. At least I'm going to get 20% of whatever this bill is. This bill was maybe upwards of $600 to $700. So I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get a really, really, really good tip out of this. So I'm walking and I'm making sure I'm giving them amazing service. And I'm hearing the whole time, and the girl's like, wow, you could tell she's very impressed. She's like, oh my God, you're the man of my dreams. I come from a family. Now she's talking about her history, how she comes from a low income family, and all she ever wanted was somebody to take care of her. And to be honest with you, If that's your dream, that's your dream. And I really hope that you get that dream. There is nothing wrong with somebody that wants to stay at home and have their other counterpart take care of them. I'm all for it. Live your best life. Do what you want to do. And if you find that, by all means, my love, you're living on cloud nine. I understand that's also not for everybody, so to each their own. But she was obviously fully into it. And the whole time he's like, yeah, like, you know, everything you want. You want another steak? You want another filet? You want it? And I was like, do you? And I was like, because I'll bring you a Sprite. I'll bring you 6 fillets if you want. Like the fillets were like $65 to $75 alone on the menu. So I was living. And it comes time to drop the check. I dropped the check, you know, with a big ass smile on my face. And I was like, if there's anything else I can get you, like, please, by all means, let me know. They got bottles of wine. They got cocktails. They got dessert. They got multiple appetizers, like multiple steaks. She took food home. Like, he's bringing food. Like, oh, my God. It was insane. It was insane. And again, because this is a restaurant that it is, this isn't like an anomaly of an experience. A lot of people come in there and they spend a lot of money. So I'm used to it, but in the sense that the way that he was talking about it, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a good one. Drop the check, whatever. I get the check back and I close them out. I drop it and I'm like, all right, if there's anything else I can get you, just please let me know. It's been such a pleasure. I hope you have an amazing day and I hope to see you again. I really hope to see you again. I didn't mean that after I found out how much he tipped me, because he went to go leave me like a $5 or $10 bill. I don't really recall. On like an upwards of a $700 bill, like $5 to $10. And I know what people are gonna say. It's like, it's more than what you came in with, 110%. Like, I get that narrative. I fully agree with that narrative. I'm not somebody that, I'm not gonna pocket watch anybody. And at the end of the day, I did say in the original video that, listen, it was $5 or $10 more that I walked in here with. And for that reason, I have to be grateful because it could have been zero. Now, on the deep inside, I was like, fuck this motherfucker. $5 to $10 on you spent 2.5 hours in my section. Now, keep in mind, at the restaurant that I work in, we have to kick you out after 2 hours. We have to do it. Like, it is, especially during that time, it was COVID. So everything was restricted. We didn't have as many servers. We were very short-staffed. This is also around the time that the lady tried to throw a wine glass in my face. So, because half the dining room was empty because we just didn't have the service to accommodate the guests. So I was like, I just wasted 2.5 hours of my life when I know I could have easily gotten like maybe a $40 to $50 tip with another table. But whatever, it is what it is. I'm not gonna complain. I will complain with my servers, but I'm gonna act very grateful and appreciative to their face. Obviously, I'm not gonna be like, you left me $10, motherfucker. Where was the papi shampoo effect? And then I hear when she drops it, he tries to like continue the conversation with her, and because the restaurant that I worked on was kind of small. It wasn't the biggest restaurant ever. Where I was standing, I could still listen to their conversation. So when she sees the $5, $10 bill, she literally says, "Papi, that's all you're gonna leave her?" And he was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, yeah, like, it's fine. She's like, no, like, we spent a while in her section. And I also think, now that I look back on it, I think she might have also been a server. So there's that kind of thing of, I know when you're on a first date, one of the biggest red flags is how your counterpart treats their server. That is a huge red flag. If they're not tipping them, if they're being rude to them, like, that is something that will make me be like, I'm never gonna go out with you ever again because this is embarrassing. And she did say that. She's like, that's embarrassing. Like, give her a little bit more. Like, do you not have it? And when she said that, this man was like, what do you mean? I just paid for the entire bill. Like, it's fine. Like, I was gonna leave her more, but she already left. And the girl is like, well, she's over there. And I see them like point towards me, and I'm literally looking at them, and I'm like, ooh, shit, the ceiling, fuck. I never looked up. Oh my God, I'm literally trying to be like, oh crap, I'm not trying to like invade in their space right now. And the guy goes to her, and I can hear this whole entire thing. He's like, oh, but she looks really busy right now. Like, I don't want to bother her. I'll leave it at the table at the end. I'll leave it at the table at the end. Knowing damn well that he didn't have anything else left in his pocket. I don't know, maybe he saved up for this date and was like, I'm just going to spend everything I have in my savings account on this one dinner, but I'm not going to account for the tip. So the girl's like, she's not busy. She's just standing over there. Like, just call her over and like tell, because at this point I already picked up the check. I already saw that it was like $5-10. So I was like, all right, whatever. She's like, she's not busy. Just go back over there. Like, just tell her like, you messed up. You did the math wrong. Whatever it may be. He's like, no. Like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's not that serious. Like, she'll be fine. She'll be fine. Like, this is about me and you. Like, why are you stressed out about her? Like, forget her. Like, you know, we had an amazing dinner. Like, let's not forget we had an amazing dinner. Let's not forget everything else I told you. Like, you know, I'm here to take care of you, not her. And the lady was like, excuse me? She's like, yeah, but it's just common courtesy. Like, it's common courtesy. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And he's like, it's not that. And then they started like kind of bickering. And at that moment, I'm talking to my servers and I'm just filling them in on the drama. And I'm like, oh my God, this table's arguing because he didn't tip me accordingly. And I guess like the girl's just like upset about it, or she's embarrassed. So they start bickering. I'm not sure what they said. She ends up getting up, and I'm by the door because I'm like, I want to see if maybe she says something to me, because you never know. I'm so nosy. Again, I worked at like a 12-15 hour shift that day, so I'll get all the drama where I can get it. I'll get some type of entertainment in any place. And as she's walking out, she sees me and she's like, oh, mommy, like, come here. And I was like, okay. I go over and she gives me like a $50 bill. And she's like, I am so sorry about that. Like, I don't want you to think that's an example of my character. You know, obviously, I don't know if you've been hearing, like, I was under the assumption that he was a good man that would at least, you know, pay the dues of the people that took care of us. But again, I just want to say I'm so sorry. This is for you. I'm not sure if you have to share this with anybody else, but like, I'm sorry again. And she just left him there. And I was like, oh, T. I was like, oh my God, I got $50. Holy shit. I just got, now on top of the 510, I got like 65, can't even do math. I got like $60 out of this. Like, this is okay. Still not a full 20%, but at that point, why am I going to complain about $60? Like, girl. And also that act alone showed a lot of her character of just like, I'm not willing to be embarrassed because of the fact that this man wanted to pay for my dinner. That was his choice. But again, if you go out to eat, like, some people think that it is necessary to at least tip out your servers. So after that, and I briefly explained this when we were talking about the viral videos, that I was so kind of not even moved by that, but I was so just confused and flabbergasted at that happening that I told the story right after I got out of work, still in my tie and my apron. Terrible lighting, and the video blew up. I didn't expect it to. It's still it is the biggest video I've ever had on my TikTok. I think it's nearing like somewhere over like 40 million views, close to like 50 million views. I'm not sure. But I didn't understand why. I didn't think it was going to blow up the way that it did, because I was just like, okay, yeah, this is just a funny story. Like, I thought it was going to be more so of like people thinking that it's funny or entertaining because the girl gave me the tip at the end or whatever. And I didn't realize the discourse or the debate that I was going to bring upon myself when I posted that video. Because a lot of the comments it was very 50-50. It was a lot of people arguing back and forth of whether or not you should tip your server or you should just be expected to pay for the bill or the food that you eat, and that's it. And the conversation I wanted to bring up on the podcast is because I feel like a lot of the times I've never been able to kind of go in and explain how it works, because there is a lot of times that I've walked into, for example, in Olive Garden, there's a lot of people who just didn't know you had to tip. Like, it wasn't even just like they were being assholes. It was more so of like they didn't know that was a thing that you had to do. And because they think that servers get paid hourly. Now, in the United States, servers we get an hourly wage, but it's like $2 to $3. I'm not in New York, in Jersey. Let me talk about Jersey. In New York, I think it's like $14, $15 an hour, which I'm like, oh, that was amazing when I worked in New York. But in Jersey specifically, it's like something of like $2, $3, if not like $5. And a lot of the times you never see that check because that goes straight to taxes. So all of your taxes are taken out of whatever you make as your hourly. So you are really depending on people to tip you at the end. And that's kind of how you make your money. That is how it has always been, at least in Jersey. That's how it always is in the United States. If you are a server, you are mainly living off tips. And one, a lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people thought like, well, you get your hourly, like you don't need me to sustain your livelihood, you're fine. You don't ever get to see those checks. I promise you, there was never, I saw like $1 or $2 check every couple months, but never anything crazy. But that's a really big thing. One, to start off, we don't get paid hourly where it's you can provide for your life at all, let alone a family, because there's a lot of people that serve tables and are sustaining their entire families off a server's wage. And in some restaurants, you really can do that. In the last restaurant I worked at, you really could do that. You could work a double and walk out with like near of like $900 to $1,000 for a double. Obviously, depending the section you're in, just depending the guests that you get, the bills, whatever it may be. But another thing that I saw a lot of the times, and I'm just going to start off going off of what people have kind of told me, is another big one is, well, why would I tip my server when I should just tip the chef? I came here for the food. You don't even make the food. You just bring me the food. I could have done that. 110% you could have done that. But then you go to a buffet. Like, at the end of the day, something that I've always said is going out to eat is never a necessity. Eating is a necessity, yes. Going out to eat, especially at higher end restaurants, that is not a necessity. That is a want. That is a luxury. That is a privilege. Not everybody is privileged enough to be able to sit down and spend $300 on a meal out. They're not. That's why fast food restaurants like McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever it may be, that's why those certain things, or even buffets, they exist. But if you're going to a higher end restaurant, that is a luxury. Going out to eat is just a luxury within itself. And when I hear the argument that it's like you should just tip the chef, yes, the chef is an integral part of a restaurant. Like 110%, you're there for the food, duh. But the chef is not only what makes a restaurant a restaurant. Like, the moment you walk in, you get greeted by a host. And in that specific restaurant, that host, depending on how much the servers made that night, depends on what their hourly is. So if the servers don't make a good amount of money, or if there's not a lot of business coming in, their hourly goes down. If we have a really good day, their hourly goes up. So it really is dependent on the server and their ability to not only, I don't want to say upcharge you, but are able to kind of sell those things that they want you to sell. For example, they want you to sell the specials. The specials are the most expensive things on the menu. That's why they're not on the menu. So it really is dependent on the server. But when you walk in, you have the host. The host is the one that greets you, the one that puts you on the wait list, the one that accommodates reservations, the one that seats you to your table. And at this specific restaurant, the host wasn't the only one that would walk over to tables or clean tables. Servers would also clean tables and walk over our guests over to our table, greet them, take first round, do whatever you had to do. There's a lot of behind the scene things that you guys don't see. For example, the dishwashers in the back. Like, that's also an extremely integral part of a restaurant, because who's going to clean your dirty ass plates? It's not me. I'm not going to clean your plates. I don't have time to clean your plates because I'm worrying about getting your ketchup. Like, it just is what it is. We have the dishwashers. We have the people that come in and clean the restaurant, the people that are the food runners. So those are people that are standing on expo. I'm trying to explain this like in like not server terms so everybody can kind of understand it. But food runners are people that when the food comes out, because at the end of the day, chef, yes, there is a certain level of presentation that you have to give out, but then it reaches the expo person, which is the person that's standing there when the chef hands you the food. They have to clean the plate. They have to present the plate. They have to make sure the plate is ready to be presented to the guest. And sometimes, a lot of the times, that's the server that does that. So I was also a food runner. Doesn't matter if the food that just came out of the hot section is not my table's food, I have to run that food, regardless of wherever it is. Even if it's on the opposite end of the restaurant, doesn't matter. This is all a teamwork. A restaurant is an extremely team-based job. Extremely team. That's why I got the job in the first place. My manager, when I sat down for the interview, they asked me, what did I do? One of the biggest things, it's like, I work well on a team. I grew up on a team. I was on a dance team. I know what the value of working together as a team is. And that's what a lot of restaurants look for, because it's not just you out there in the woods, like, especially in this specific restaurant. You're working all together to kind of put this idea together, or to give people this luxury, because again, this is a luxury. And then on top of that, you have bartenders. Bartenders are the people that make your cocktails, the people that make your soft drinks, the people that put all that other stuff together. So it isn't just the chef, although he is an integral part. Every single part of that restaurant is a working machine. And another big thing is servers tip out these people. So bartenders get tipped out by the servers. So although say if I make $200, I have to put some money aside to be able to tip out my bartender because he helped me out for the entire night. He made my drinks. He made sure that everything was done in a timely manner. Obviously, there's managers. There's so much that goes into it. So when I hear the argument of like tip your chef, yeah, sure, but then what about the people making your drinks too? What about the people that are sitting you down? What about the people that are cleaning the plates in the back? What about the people that are restocking as the restaurant is open? Like, what about the people that are literally bringing your stuff? Because yes, I bring you your plate of food, but what if something goes wrong with your food? Chefs don't deal with people. They deal with just food. Servers deal with people. And might I add, hungry people, which is probably one of the worst parts of it, is that when somebody gets hungry, they get hangry, every single problem that they have your server becomes a punching bag. And it's happened a lot. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it happens quite a few. And it's common that it does happen. If something goes wrong with your food, I have to be the one to then go back up and be like, hey, they needed like this and this and this. If you have allergies, the chef would not know about allergies unless I have to go up there and there's a certain way to write everything down to make sure that it's absolutely correct. If you can't have peanuts, I need to make sure that I know everything that's happening in these ingredients to make sure that I don't put you in harm's way. It's just a stupid argument because, again, like if you want ketchup, are you going to go up and ask the chef or are you going to go ask your server? If you want another Coke, are you going to go up and ask the chef or are you going to ask your server? If your food came out wrong, are you going to ask the chef or are you going to ask the server? If you didn't like the way that your food was placed because it was placed on a 3rd degree angle and you prefer it on a 4th, are you going to tell the chef or are you going to tell the server? So it's not, I think it's a lot of people are undercutting what servers actually do because the point of servers is to be that kind of like invisible ghost there. All you need to know is you got your food, you enjoy your food, you leave, and you want to come back. That's our job. But the behind the scenes of everything, we're also managing 3 to 5 different tables at a time. So it's not just you. This is not just your dining experience that is in my hands right now. I'm driving the boat of like 5 different people. Or at that point, I can have at least like 15 people in my section, and I need to make sure every single one of those people will not only leave, but they will come back. That argument pissed me off, and I feel like that's just like a very childish teenager response of things, of when people are like, tip the chef. And I'm like, well, you obviously have no idea how real world works, or you maybe have never even worked in a place to know that it's not just one person. But again, if you do only want to just go there and you only think that we're getting served, go to a buffet. Go do that. Go live your best life. You can actually go up there and grab your own food. Another thing that I saw a lot of people say is, I only have enough money for the bill. That is another big debate that was happening on the comment section of, I only have enough money for the bill. Like, I was only expecting to come out and spend this much. Why do I have to dip more into my pocket to go tip you? If you don't have enough money to tip your servers, you don't have enough money to go out. And I know that's a huge statement and probably so many people are going to get mad at me, but that is the truth. If you don't have enough money to tip out the person that has helped you on helped your dining experience, then you don't have enough money to pay for the service. Like, you don't. Just like when you go get your nails done, you go in at the nail salon, you go and tip somebody, right? Although that one is a little different. I'm not gonna lie. Let me not relate the two because those are kind of different. But yeah, if you don't have enough money to at least give your server $10, then you shouldn't be going out to eat, to be completely honest. And again, this isn't me trying to pocket watch people. This is just me responding back to the comments that I saw a lot of people have. Because if you only have $50 to go out, then go order takeout. That also is an option. And then you don't really have anybody, you're not wasting anyone's time here. Because again, if somebody is sitting in my section, you are essentially taking money from me because I can't get another table to sit on top of you, obviously. Just order takeout or get McDonald's or get pizza. Like, it's just, I don't know. That's such like it irks me every single time. It's like, I only have enough money for the bill. Don't come out to eat, especially at higher end restaurants. That always like blows my mind when people are like, I don't have enough. What are you doing here? This is like a $4 signs on Google. Look it up. Like, this is not, if you have enough money to come out here, you surely have enough money to give at least $5. And again, some people really don't have something. And I've been in situations like that where they're like, I don't really have anything else, but this is all I have to offer you. Okay, at least you kind of made the initiative to compensate me for my time taking care of you. Because I'm also working a job here and I should get paid for that job, which brings me to my next point. A lot of the times people will say, well, it's up to your boss or the establishment to pay you a fair wage. It's not up for me to pay you your livelihood. It should be up to your boss. 110%. I agree with that. Yes, we should be getting hourly wages. I agree. I'm standing behind that. But we don't. So instead of taking it out on the establishment, you take it out on the person at the bottom of the totem pole, which that to me never made sense as to why it's like, yes, we should be getting paid hourly wages, but what are we supposed to do? We have a livelihood. We have bills to pay. We have things that we need to do. And instead of taking it out on the establishment, you're taking it out on the person that has to pay their bills. I feel like that's such a cop-out excuse of just being like, let's blame the man. Yeah, let's blame him, but we have nothing, we can't do anything about it. We still have to pay our bills at the end of the day. So the least you could do is just pay me out accordingly. That's it. Again, I'm here to provide a service to you. You don't have to come out to eat. You don't have to sit in someone's section and take 2 hours out of their day for them to serve you hand and foot, whatever you need. You need water, you need ketchup, you need this. It's there at your disposal. I can't change the way the world works. I can't, especially for something of like in the service industry. It has been a long time going that it's just the way it is. So why punish the person at the bottom of the totem pole? And then the next comment is, oh, but you knew the job that you were getting when you got this job. So why are you so surprised if you're not getting tips? Tips are not obligated. Yeah, and also being a good person isn't an obligation. It's not. You can be the most terrible person ever. You can be the worst person ever. It really doesn't matter. That is up to you. It is up to you whether you're a good person or a bad person, and it's up to you whether you want to tip or not tip. But that also tells things on your character. Again, totally up to you. It's not an obligation. It's not mandatory. But why is it that sometimes, although in some restaurants it is mandatory for parties over 12, that they automatically include the tip there? And you don't complain about that. I never see complaints about that where people are like, it's a mandate. They already included the tip on that. In the club, they do that a lot. So you're telling me that you are willing to tip out your bottle girl, but you're not willing to tip out your server? Like, girl, make that make sense for a second. And that brings me to, again, when people are like, well, you got the job, so why don't you look for another job? That is so, for when people say that, I feel them sitting there in a position of privilege to be like, well, just get a better job then. Get a better job? Babe, if I could, I would. Like, there are some situations where push comes to shove, and I've seen a lot of my other coworkers where they're just like, this is not ideally what I want to do. It's somebody's dream to serve after people, and maybe for some people it actually is, and which all power to you. But when push comes to shove, you have to get a job. And a serving job offers the most flexibility. I know it was a lot of single mothers that worked serving jobs because it offered a lot of flexibility, and sometimes you could bring your kid and the other servers will take care of your kid, because it really just comes down to, like, you have to do what you have to do sometimes. And the whole idea of just get a better job, that just held me alone. You sit in such a position of privilege to look at somebody who is trying to make honest money, because that's what it is. You're making honest money. You can go out to the street and make your money in a different way, doing different things. But if you're trying to make an honest living and you have an asshole that is sitting down at a restaurant where you may not be able to even have that luxury to do until you get a better job, like, do you have no soul? Do you have not one little like glimmer of light in you to see this person is also just trying to live? At the end of the day, everybody's just trying to live, and everybody's just trying to pay the bills and take care of themselves or their own or their family or their everybody's just trying to do something. So to say, like, just get a better job, as if also it's not that easy to get a job nowadays. Like, I can't tell you how many different times I see different articles of just being like, the employment right now is a little crazy. Getting jobs right now is very, very tough. And sometimes, again, you have to pick up on those jobs that you maybe never wanted to do, but you have to do them because you have to pay your bills one way or another. And again, it also really depends on the restaurant that you work at, because that's why I had to leave Olive Garden, because I was like, this isn't providing a livable income for me. Like it's just not. Like I think the day that I realized I was like, I can't do this anymore was I worked a Mother's Day double. And Mother's Day in the service industry is one of the busiest times. One of the busiest times. Everybody loves to take their mom out to eat, especially to Olive Garden. Like I don't know, maybe this is just like a Latino experience. But when I was younger, I thought Olive Garden was the most fanciest thing ever. I thought it was the highest of the highest. I said, oh, we're going to Olive Garden. We were eating good. We're going to a fancy restaurant. And otherwise, I'm a little girl. I don't know. So everybody loves to take their mom out to Mother's Day. I worked a double, which I think was like from like 10 a.m. to maybe like 11. 11:30. Obviously, you have to close out. You have your side work that you have to do. Like, also keep in mind that after everybody leaves the restaurant, it's not like servers just take their apron off and they're out. We also have to do work after everybody's done. We have to clean the restaurant. We have to restock everything. We have to make sure the plates are clean. We have to make sure everything is ready for the next day. And I remember I was one of the only people to work a double on Mother's Day, because I would hear the hype about it. I'd be like, you make so much money. You can walk out with like $600. And walking out $600 at Olive Garden is insane. Is insane because those checks are so low, it's not even funny. They're like $20 to $50 checks. Again, it's not a super high-end restaurant. You can eat a lot of food for a very low price. So I remember the entire staff that worked that Mother's Day, including my manager, was like, oh, Emily, can I count your money? And like, let's see how much money you made this day. Like this is going to be a good payout. And I was like, oh, well, I just worked like 10, 11 hours. Like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. They're all counting my money. They're all waiting. My manager's face drops. And I'm like, what happened? Like, did I mess something out with my checkout? Like, what happened? She's like, so for the entire day, she pulled me to the side. She's like, for the entire day, you made $215. I said, I made what? I made $215 for like 11 hours, 12 hours of work. Now, let me just do the math real quick for that. I had to pay out everybody else at the end of the night, so I made less than like $200. So let's say I made like maybe like 170 around there, which for 12 hours of work is pretty okay. But for the amount of time that you spend on your feet, the amount of also the day alone, like I remember I got out of that restaurant and I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. Like, this is so ridiculous. Like, it not only could I be making a lot more money on another restaurant, which I could, because I also worked Mother's Day at the other restaurant I worked at, and I walked out with quadruple of what I made in Olive Garden. But I was like, I also didn't spend the day with my mom. Like, that really hurt my heart. And again, you kind of start to build like a family within your own little server team. And I still think about these people all the time because we spent New Year's together. We spent major holidays together, like Thanksgiving, like it kind of like takes a toll on you when you're like, all right, well, I guess this is my holiday family. And even my boyfriend was also a server, and they went later into New Year's. Luckily, when we closed, I got home around like 11:45. No, actually, I completely lied. I got home past midnight, but it was like maybe 12:15. So I was still able to spend time with my family. But my boyfriend's restaurant in specific, they do New Year's in the restaurant. So he didn't get home until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was actually a really sweet little tangent of like behind the scenes. There was the last table that was there, and we're all trying to clean out because we're all trying to rush home before midnight, but this table won't leave. And the table comes over to all of us, and there was maybe like 5 or 6 of us at that point. And they're like, listen, we don't know if this is allowed, but we left a full bottle of champagne on the table. We weren't planning on drinking it. You know, I guess they went through like a little tragedy, so they didn't really want to go back home. I don't know. And they're like, this is a really hard New Year's for us. Thank you so much for, the amazing service. Whatever you guys decide to do with that champagne bottle is up to you. But Happy New Year's, like, cheers. We went to the back. We grabbed that champagne bottle. We were like, let's go. Happy New Year's. Happy, throwing our ties up. We were like, oh, it's the new year. And we're bringing it in the restaurant, which I think is like one of the most beautiful moments I shared with my team. But again, that's something that you have to take into account, that these people are also taking time away from being with their families to serve you. And the least you can do, and again, I'm not saying if they give you bad service, tip them 20%. No. If you're getting trash, caca mierda service, no, that's not fair. Like, you're here to do a job. If you do your job well, the least that you expect out of it is to get compensated for it. Now, if you're doing your job half-ass, I'm not giving you shit. And I've been in those situations, and it pains me, because one thing I absolutely cannot do, I cannot leave a restaurant, I cannot leave a bar, I can't leave anything without tipping adequately, because I've worked on that opposite end, and I know what it feels like to do your job so well and then get underpaid for it. Like, I don't want to leave that with anybody. But there have been, I mean, there was one specific time that I refused to tip this lady. Not even lady, this was like a little girl, and it was something like Applebee's. And this is why it breeds a certain type of clientele. A lot of the people serving at Applebee's are teenagers. It's their first job. They don't really care about it. They're here to like mess around with their friends and do whatever. But this girl had the nastiest attitude. I think I asked her for like, I don't even know, I think it was like ketchup or something. And she just rolled her eyes at me and like scoffed away. And I was like, whoa. And the whole time it was just like, anytime that I would ask, oh, can I get a refill of this? Oh my God. I didn't realize I thought this was the other way around. I'm used to being a punching bag standing at the end of your table. I'm not used to me being a guest and being your punching bag because you're having a bad day. At the end of the day, I've done your job, and whatever problems are happening, whatever beef you're feeling, whatever emotional state that you are in, it all gets left at the door. The moment you pass through those doors, and this is maybe because of where I used to work, and I worked, again, at a nicer restaurant, and it was like a military base, how they trained us. But they always tell you and this should be any job, anytime you walk through the doors of your office, your restaurant, your coffee shop, your studio, whatever it may be, those problems are no longer existent. You're here to do a job, and you're here to do that job well. And that moment, in those specific cases, when somebody is treating you like the bottom of their shoe and they're serving you, then no, they don't deserve the full 20%. And who knows, I know the excuse is maybe they're having a bad day. I don't care. I've had the worst days of my life serving tables, being on that floor. I have shit myself at a table, and I still said please and thank you. Like, I don't care about the excuses. Like, I really don't. Because again, when you're here to do a job, do the job. But do the job that's expected out of you. Do the job that you are hired to do, and do it well. If you're having a bad day, then girl, go to the back and like just grab onto something really hard. But once you are in front of those guests, understand that you are here to provide a luxury for them. And the last thing you want to do is to be the reason why they had a bad night. Maybe this is something that they don't usually ever come out all the time. Maybe this is a time that, they got together, something really bad happened, and they're just trying to share a meal together. You never know what's happening on the receiving end on both ways. The least you could do is just do the job that you were hired to do. So in those cases, I agree. Maybe you are not deserving a full 20%. But in certain situations, it's like, just be a decent human being. And one of the last ones that I saw, a really big one, was, well, they don't tip in other countries. Like in Europe, a tip is not expected. They're like, oh yeah, try to tip in Europe. We're not living in fucking Europe. Why is that the excuse? Also, Europe has public health care. We don't have public health care, but that's like one of the main things that pisses me off so bad. It's like, well, we don't tip in other countries. We're not living in other countries. We're living in the United States of America. I work here. I pay my taxes here. I have to pay my bills here. We are not that's not an argument. That's not an argument. It's really not. Like, just because it doesn't happen somewhere else does now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, if I don't have to do it in Europe, I don't have to do it in America. Excuse me? Now, it's different if you come from Europe and you're not used to the tipping culture here. Because I've also walked into that situation as well, where you can very much tell that these people are not from here. So I'm like, oh, they're probably not going to understand tipping culture, and I'm not going to be here to give them the lecture. Like, it is what it is. Still give them amazing service nonetheless, but we're not living in Europe. I don't understand how that's even like a plausible defense. Like, how is that even a point of just being like, well, it doesn't happen over there, so it shouldn't happen over here? Well, it does happen over here, and this is the way of the world here. There's a certain societal norm that happens here that may not happen in Europe. There's topless people are booty naked on the beach in Europe. That's not happening here. That's not a societal norm here. It's just not. It's not what it is. There's a very different culture over here than it is. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just saying it's different. But why would we adhere to their cultural standard when we're not living there? But the thing is, I feel like a lot of times people pick and choose what they want to stand by, of just being like, well, they don't tip over there, so I'm not going to tip over here. What? I'm not even going to get into history. I'm not even going to get into herstory. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But it's like, there are a lot of things that happen around the world that we also don't adhere to here because it's just not the societal norm here. I don't get that point. That point pisses me off. Yes, tipping is a choice, but I always say this, being a good person is a choice. Being a bad person is a choice. Like I've been in situations with friends, and I said this in the last video, where we have gotten into arguments because they don't want to tip the server when we go out to eat. And I'm like, you're not about to embarrass me, but I'm also not putting more money down because of you. Like that is also just taking advantage of me. And just because you're not a kind person doesn't mean that I'm going to let this person just like go off and do whatever it is. Now, one thing too, really quick point is I know that a lot of the times people are saying tipping culture is getting out of hand. And I will agree with that to a certain extent, because the whole little coffee shop thing where you flip over the screen and they're like, yeah, we're going to make your coffee, or they're just going to pour like iced tea into a cup. And then they expect like $5 after I paid like $4 for this iced tea. Like, then I'm like, can we be for real for a second? Can we be for real for a second? And I think I had one time where I tipped somebody, and it's so awkward when you have to change the amount, because I'm like, I'm not going to tip you $4 for a $4 iced tea that you just poured into a cup. Like, no, that's absolutely insane. Then I can completely understand. It's not like this is a 3-minute interaction, if that. But I'll leave like maybe $1. But it's so awkward when you have to change it to like $1, or you have to put in like custom. Because I did that one time and I put like $1. And I was in Brooklyn. And the person like scoffed at me. And I was like, oh, I'm getting scoffed at? At least I left you something. Like, I didn't have to leave you anything. This is not a dining experience. I'm just here to grab a nice tea. Like, this is, okay. Fears, go off. I love the diva. But, I mean, to each their own. Then I can kind of understand when people are saying, like, tipping culture is getting out of hand. But as far as, like, going out to eat, like, I'll say it time and time again. It is a luxury. It is not a necessity. You do not have to go out to eat. You don't have to. It's not one of those things that it's mandated where it's just like you have to go out to eat at least 3 times a week. Like, no, you don't. And you also don't have to tip your servers, but you also don't have to be a good person either, because that is very telling on your character. And I think that's why it sparked such a large debate underneath that story time, because people were just like, I didn't realize it was such a divided topic of people being like, no, I don't ever tip, or I do always tip. Like, I didn't realize it was that until obviously I saw the video, or I talk about it anytime. But if your excuse for not tipping is because you should tip the chef, or the business should be paying you hourly wages, or we don't tip in Europe, I need you to understand those are not valid arguments. They're not valid arguments whatsoever. We don't live in Europe. And yes, our businesses should be paying us hourly wages, but they don't. So why take it out on the person on the bottom of the totem pole that are just trying to live their life and pay their bills? And also, when you say just tip the chef, it just goes to show the immaturity or ignorance that you have in how a restaurant actually works. A restaurant is a team-based job. You can't do it one without the other. People would go crazy. Restaurants would not be able to survive if it was just one person. It is a team-based effort, and everybody puts their own part in to make the restaurant successful. And also, understanding that servers also have to tip other people out at the end of the night. Like, once you leave, the job isn't done. I have to tip out my bartenders. I have to tip out my hostess. I have to tip out everybody that helped the night run smoothly, because again, it is a team-based job. And I agree, we should get hourly wages. It should be a lot more than like $3, but it's not. And that's not the way of the world right now. Just like they don't tip in Europe and they do tip over here. It's just how things kind of go. And if another one of your arguments is to get a better job, you're a piece of shit. Point blank, period. With the little bleep. People are trying to make their money. People have so many different ways of making their money. Who are you to tell somebody, well, get a better job if you don't like how you're getting paid? Well, no, because this is the societal norm. You become a server, you live off of tips. That's kind of how it works. The better the restaurant, the better the tips. That's just kind of how it goes. And I will agree, if you don't like how much tips you're getting, just like I did in Olive Garden, I had to get a better job. I got a better job at a better restaurant. And if you are going to these higher end restaurants that are like $5 bills on Google, understand that the level of service that you are going to get is at such a high caliber that this becomes people's career. Like, that is also a career. And if there were no servers in the world, this is like, you remember when Kylie Osbourne did that whole thing? I was about to say remember when Kylie Osbourne tried to make like a point against Donald Trump and was like, if there's no Latinos in the country, Donald Trump, who's gonna clean your toilets? And then everyone's like, oh, that's not. But like, I was like, Kelly Osbourne, what the that's not the point I was gonna make. That's definitely not the point I'm gonna make. But if there are no servers to serve your restaurants, there would be no restaurants. There really wouldn't be. Like, unless you get like the animatronic robots. But then at that point, that goes into a bigger conversation of AI, and that's a different topic for a different time. But if there are no servers to serve after you, well, then that's it. Restaurants can't do it. I remember even in COVID when we were short-staffed, how difficult it was to run that restaurant being short-staffed. I can't imagine what it would be like if it was like no servers, unless you're like in Japan, in which case sometimes they don't have servers. They have like the electronic thing. But again, they're so technologically advanced that it's I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. And at that point, I mean, I guess tip your robot. I don't know how that works over there. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the debate is going to be around this. And I'm sure people are going to try to find loopholes and different things in the ways that I said. I may have not said everything correctly or articulated myself in the best way that I possibly could have. And I'm going to watch this episode afterwards and be like, I should have said this. But it all comes down to being a good person or a bad person. Take care of the people that take care of you. If they don't take care of you, then obviously act accordingly. But at the end of the day, everybody here is just trying to live. They're trying to survive. They're trying to pay their bills. It is extremely expensive to be living out here. And the least you could do is give what you can, because we're all here to do a job. Just like if you want to get paid for your job, you know what it entailed. They're trying to also just get paid. They're just trying to survive. Least you could do is be a good person facilitating that, especially if they're giving you a service and they're waiting on you hand and foot. That's it. That's all it is. It's very simple. I think it's very simple, but apparently it's not. So I'm interested to see the comments. But that's it for today. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll be back again for another episode next week. And yeah, tip your servers. Be nice to your servers. And that's it. Bye, guys.